Okay, welcome to episode 9. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about what I've labelled as non nutritional influences. So, to cut a long story short, we're going to look at hydration and sleep. So, starting with hydration, basically, 50 to 70% of your body is water. Now, men tend to have higher water as they carry more muscle. Muscle is 70% water, whilst fat is only 10%. But water plays vital roles throughout the body, as I'm sure you know. It's the medium for nearly every chemical reaction in the body. It makes a large proportion of our blood. It's used to dissolve and transport nutrients and remove waste products. It protects and lubricates joints. But yeah, one of the first things I almost always have to recommend people do is actually get a sensible amount of water in per day. Now, where does hydration and weight loss come into a relation? So we have little research on hydration and weight loss. However, some studies do show a lowering of energy intake when swapping calorie-sweetened drinks for water. Again, right? Fairly common sense. So some individuals have a poor sense of dehydration and can confuse it for hunger. Now, for me, that's one of the most important points that we can make in this entire lesson, okay? And that's one of the most common things that I notice is when people start drinking more water, they'll be snacking a lot less, okay? I can't stress enough, you have to be drinking enough water. It's not a case of I'm busy at work or I just don't get, you make time. You have to make time. It's non-negotiable. It's not something that there is any excuse for. You have to be drinking enough water. Being dehydrated can lead to feelings of lethargy, tiredness, and can result in a sort of concomitant reduction in activity and a possible tendency to reach for a, in quotes, pick-me-up. So what we often find is people are just dosing themselves up with either coffees or teas throughout the day, but simply because they're not drinking enough water. So that's, again, one of the most common things. But I drink lots of tea, does that count? No, it doesn't count. It's not the same thing. Water may also play a small role in helping you feel less hungry. So obviously where it reacts off the same mechanism between hydration and hunger. So, missed the last one. So dehydration may lower our expenditure and increase our intake. So, therefore, if it's not common sense, it's really, really important. So just a 2% reduction in hydration has been shown to lower exercise performance amongst an array of activities and sports. This includes team sports, endurance sports, resistance sports. 2% dehydration is not even noticeable. If you want to be performing at your best in the gym, make sure you stay hydrated. Even if you don't play sports, if you want to be at your best for work, such as life in general, make sure you're drinking enough water. I'm assuming if you're going to be coming to do personal training with us, that you want to be doing well at it, okay? So make sure you're hydrated. That doesn't mean a sports drink. It means water. So how much should I drink? So sweat rates are very individual, and they're based upon gender, body weight, occupation, training volume, intensity, humidity, alcohol intake, weather, climate, fitness, as well as even more different things. An easy way to understand your hydration status is to use a urine chart. So don't go overboard, but drinking too much can be dangerous and is not beneficial. So Google, don't do that, but you can if you want to. But that's basically what happens if you drink too much water. So going back, obviously dark urine, you're going to be very, very unhealthy. Lighter urine, better sign of health. A very simple way of putting hydration is if you basically keep drinking more until your pee is clear or copious. Okay, that's the other thing we hear from people all the time is, now that I'm drinking more water, I can't stop weeing. Okay, well, you weren't supposed to go 3 to 4 to 5 hours between needing a wee anyway. So you're just being normal, all right? That's something you're going to have to get used to. So you want to carry a bottle with you. It will act as a trigger to drink more. Choose drinks you enjoy. So it doesn't have to necessarily be just water. You can certainly get some calorie-free squash in there. If you've got the calories for it, by all means consume some milk or something like that. The other thing I'll say is try and avoid just relying on teas and coffees. It's just not going to be good enough. And don't forget foods. Okay, soups contain water, stews contain water, smoothies contain water, fruits and vegetables contain water, and they all do add up. Okay, it's a little harder to measure, but they do all add up. We shouldn't ignore that fact. Okay, so being adequately hydrated, obviously, as we've already hinted at, it plays an important role in many bodily functions. The link between water intake and fat loss is currently unclear, but it may be prudent to avoid dehydration if you want to maintain energy levels and calorie expenditure. You can use urine colour as a guide, or simply just drink until your pee is clear or copious, and just get more fluids by drinking fluids you like the taste of. Just be aware of calories. Again, calorie-free squash and little drops can be a useful tip. Okay, so we're going to look into. Sorry, I just said hydration and sleep. Before we get into the two bookends of the lesson, we've got a little bit of touching on recovery here. So thinking of recovery via the body as a bucket. So, I don't know why I said bucket there. I've got a glass. You get my drift. So we've got a semi-full cup of recovery reserves, and as we go through the day, that goes up and down. But what empties it? Okay. So hard training, a calorie deficit, or even just a poor diet is going to deplete it. A lack of quality sleep, consumption of alcohol, illness. Basically, it's all stress. So work, bills, family, kids, pressure, whatever else is going on, that's all going to empty from your bucket for recovery. I think we can also call this recovery and willpower. It all comes from the same bucket. Okay, we cannot, as much as we'd like to, compartmentalize our work stress in one place with our home stress in another place and our dieting and training stress in another place. It all comes from the same place, and that's what makes adherence so possible without a plan. So what happens when our recovery stores are low? We get tired. Our eating gets disrupted. We eat irregularly. Some people may binge, while some others may lose their appetite. Our sleep quality is going to go down, whether that's just your inability to fall asleep or whether that's even to stay asleep. Your mood's going to get worse. You're going to be more irritable. Your training intensity is going to have to lower. You're probably going to feel like you're spinning your wheels and not making any progress. Unfortunately, you also increase your risk of injury, which is why I often say when people have come in and they're absolutely exhausted, just don't train today. You're just not gonna get much out of it. You're probably better off going home, sticking your feet up, putting Netflix on, and getting some good food in you. So the other question I get on the back of that is, but can I just push through? Well, look, you're grown up. That's for you to decide. However, let's look at what actually happens here. So we've got your fitness level going up and down in the squirrely line in a perfect world. Whereas when your recovery is low, your fitness level is going to go up and down, but it's going to go further down, if that makes sense. So continuing to train at the same volume intensity will further lower recovery reserves. At best, performance will suffer and progress will stop. At worst, as I've already hinted at, we run the risk of injury. So how can you fill it back up? The so-called bucket-looking glass, or glass-looking bucket we've got here. So focus on better quality and quantity of sleep, limit your alcohol, increase your calories, or simply just take a break from dieting. That doesn't mean go and binge. It simply means don't be in as much of an aggressive calorie deficit. You might want to reduce your training volume and intensity during stressful periods. You might want to do some active recovery. Yoga is fantastic, light walks. Those of you that are quite new will know that I always tell you to go out for a nice long walk the day or two after your first session because it hits you like a brick wall. It's just going to help get you recovered, okay? Stretching, mobility work, the little mobility routine we do in the warm-up is fantastic. All of this stuff is going to help fill the glass back up. Meditation, for those of you that have ever tried it or have been curious of it, that's going to help. Basically, another almost cliche thing, but it's definitely true, is green exercise. Just get outside, all right? We don't have to be confined to the gym to get exercise in. Get out into the trees, get out into the parks, I should say. Don't get into trees. So moving specifically into sleep. Okay, we're always being told how important sleep is for our health, but in a busy world, many of us struggle to even get 6 or 8 hours, okay? Some of us seem to be fine. We even seem to thrive on less sleep, while others feel wrecked. But what are the implications of sleep duration and quality on your health and fitness goals? Now, I think sleep's really, really important. We kind of have gotten into a bit of a state these days where People seem to take pride on not needing as much sleep, and they claim to be getting just as much done. They're dosing themselves up with caffeine throughout the day, and on surface level, they look productive. But for me, that individual is a ticking time bomb for a kind of a crash and burn, let's say. So, sleep's role in fat loss. So, again, we've deliberately labeled this as fat loss, not just weight loss, because so this study here, I've gone a bit too in depth, but just to summarize it very easily, one group had 5.5 hours sleep per night, one group had 8.5 hours per sleep per night. The groups had the same amount of weight loss. Again, I've not labeled this very well. Let's say it's 3 kilos, it might be 3 pounds. However, the group that got more sleep nearly doubled the actual fat loss. So this was when calories were controlled, but research suggests the results could be even worse in free living conditions. So, sleep's role in fat loss. Again, if you've not noticed a trend between alcohol and other things, it's going to reduce your NEAT, so your non-exercise based activity. Okay, it's going to increase your hunger, it's going to reduce your willpower, it's going to increase your likeliness to reach for the hyperpalatable foods that we mentioned previously, the high sucrose, high fat foods. I'm tired and want to eat everything, for example, is a common quote. It's going to make your training worse, it's going to make your recovery worse, you're probably going to have worse cognition and therefore mental clarity, therefore willpower, therefore decision-making ability. So what can we do? What can we do to promote good sleep hygiene? Now, yes, even though you're grown-ups, yes, even though most of you watching this lesson have probably got kids that are making it very difficult for you, try and have a planned bedtime, okay? And you want to try and sleep in an absolutely pitch black room. So that means TV's off if you've got one in the room. That means phone is on flight mode, screen down. That means alarm clocks don't have big shining timers pointing out. You want to be as dark as possible. That means blackout blinds if you haven't got them already. It's common sense stuff, but just make it a place where your body's gonna want to stay switched off. And also, this is one that has been an absolute game changer for me over the last couple of years, is to have a pre-bed routine. So what do you hints at? That means phone on flight mode at least an hour before bed. That means trying to spend as little time in front of screens as possible the hour or so before bed. That means having the main light in the room off as much as possible the hour or so before bed, whether that means a little lamp or candlelight. That it might mean a bath with some Epsom salts or something else like that. It might mean certain teas, that kind of thing, to help you switch off. For a lot of people, reading something fiction-based or magazine-based to something that isn't going to matter if you remember it or not. So no business books, no self-improvement books, no work-related books or reports or anything like that pre-bed. Now, for those of you that just wipe that, and that I couldn't possibly, the very least you could do is use apps like Flux, or most Apple products these days have what's called Night Shift. Make sure they're switched on so that all the blue light that's coming out of your screen is removed, and it's going to help your eyes to wind down a little bit at least. Obviously, you want to be reducing your caffeine intake after lunchtime, really, but especially after the mid-afternoon. So I can't stress enough, guys, how important your recovery is. Okay, as much as most of our contact as client and trainer is going to be in a gym and pushing you, we have to respect your ability to recover from that as well. So I highly recommend getting a good sleep routine in place. If you aren't already, get your water on. It's non-negotiable. I'm not even gonna be understanding about this one. I have to just be blunt with it. You just have to make sure you're drinking enough water. Let's be grown-ups about it. You've got to get it done. But otherwise, they're really, really basic stuff that gives you a massive return for your efforts. All right. So as always, questions if you've got them in the Facebook group or by email, and we'll see you or speak to you on the next lesson. Cheers. Bye-bye.